The Sam Sorbo Show is brought to you in partnership by the Herzog Foundation.
Hi there. A California school district has paid a far-left transgender activist service $12,000 for a 6-hour training on transgender inclusion. And 1,100 staff members are now trained in radical trans ideology. We're going to talk about that on today's show with my guest, the president of US PI, US Parents Involved in Education, and founder. And that's what's happening next. So stay tuned. This is going to be a wild ride. Here we go.
Sam Sorbo,
welcome back to the program.
I'm glad to welcome Sam Sorbo.
It's great to have you here.
Sam Sorbo.
All right, welcome back to the program. So my guest is Sheri. She founded US Parents Involved in Education, and she's been an activist in these things for quite a while. The mission of US PI is to end the US Department of Education and all federal education mandates, which is something that I wholeheartedly agree with. US PI has established 20 state chapters already. It's rapidly growing amid the national outcry from parents who want to regain control of their children's education. So Sheri joins me now. Let's bring you on. Hi there.
Hi, Sam. So glad to be on your show again. Thanks for having me.
You found something very worthwhile to discuss. Talk to me about this push to trans our children.
Well, there is a big push to do that, and to do so behind parents' backs. They don't want parents even knowing that they are grooming young children into this very harmful identity. They are encouraging children at very young ages that they can be any sex or any object. They can identify as anything they want, not contrary, of course, to what God them to be. So it's very sad to see this happening. It's happening in government schools on a large scale. It's not that long ago, Sam, that I remember, drag queens and, before the story hours, of course, but, drag queens and cross-dressers, we used to call them, and we just thought it was kind of a quirky phenomenon, really didn't relate it to sex. But now it's as though children are being told that they're sexual beings and that they can identify as any sex that they want. And so I believe, and I'm sure you agree, that this is child abuse and it should be stopped, and it certainly should not be happening behind parents' backs.
So really fascinating, because I do think that it's all basically, I've said it this way: they want to have sex with your kids. Like, can we just let's get it out, and then we can really talk about what's actually going on. You did a movie called Truth and Lies in Education, and in that film, you talk more about the Marxism that was sort of invading our schools and this ideology. But doesn't this all actually relate to each other, all of these different things that they're doing?
Yes, indeed. And it's something that they call culturally relevant pedagogy. So it encompasses all of these Marxist theories. So there's not just critical race theory, but there's critical feminist theory, critical queer theory. So they're all lumped together. And there's a group that's identified as oppressors. And then on the other side, you have the oppressed. So the oppressors are white, heterosexual males, and even Protestants. So now they now claim Christians are oppressors. And then on the flip side, you have minorities, anybody who isn't white. And these are the people who are oppressed, LGBTQ, and what they call minority religions. So it's all wrapped together in this culturally relevant pedagogy. And it's actually been a practice in the colleges and universities for some time. So we're just now seeing it infiltrating the K-12 classrooms, but it has been a part of a long-term agenda. And I think it goes all the way back to Alfred Kinsey, back in the 40s, when he authored the books that he did sexual experimentation on very young children, including babies. And he professed and proclaimed that children are sexual from birth, and that they enjoy sex, and that they should be allowed to indulge. And so this is the type of mentality, of course, that prompted the sexual revolution. We saw the lines beginning to blur back then between men and women. You know, women were burning their bras, they're bringing home in the bacon and frying it up in the pan, and all of those cliches that we heard about. Men were wearing their hair long. So, you know, I think they've been at this agenda for some time, and you are so right, and it's profound when you say they want to have sex with your children, because ultimately that's where it leads. I've seen some research that's been done. Bill Gates was involved, Rutgers University was involved, and they embrace pedophilia. And so that's where the end game is with all of
Where?
this.
Where? Who embraced pedophilia?
Well, this organization, I'll have to give you the website. I wish I had thought to write that down. It's a very good, well-researched, well-documented website that exposes all of this. And they're primarily working in Europe right now. Rutgers University and Bill Gates are working with them to implement, you know, K-12 curriculum, K through 3 curriculum with very young children. And it's insidious. It's just a mess. And so that's, you know, it's what we have to do is expose the garbage. We have to protect children. We've got to identify these criminals, because this is literally a crime, what's happening to children. It is child abuse. You know, they talk about this organization that you talked about, that indoctrinated or trained these staff in this school district. You know, they proclaim that they are helping children because their parents won't allow them to identify. So they're helping them to prevent suicide and all of these other things, while they're supplying them with all these insidious resources so that they can be opposite their biological sex.
Yeah, so this is off of an article in Daily Mail, and is it Daily Mail? Daily Wire. My bad.
Daily Wire.
Sorry. I get these things confused. Okay, Daily Wire. And part of the article reads this way: first of all, the name of the organization is Trans Family Support Services. Trans Family Support Services encourages children to identify as the opposite sex. They encourage it, okay, and provides them with binders and packers. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically a way to hide your appendages, let's say, binders and packers through its gender junk program. Gender junk. Can you imagine? So the paraphernalia that you have been armed with to establish your gender, your sex, is now termed junk. And I know that, you know, men have been referring to their packages as junk for a long time, but still, they call it gender junk. It's a program that they have to provide services to bind the chest so that you, as a female, you look more like a boy, and to pack away things so that you look less like a boy. With the help of grants, this is their quote, with the help of grants, we assist transgender youth in need. So there are a couple things at play. They are transgender and they are in need, right? To feel more at home in their bodies, by denying their bodies, they will feel more at home. This is a war against the self. And they claim that it alleviates gender dysphoria. That's according to the organization. But also, they have children that they have so helped who have committed suicide. So,
Yeah.
and go ahead.
Well, I was going to point out two things in what you just read. That's obvious to me. They said through grants. So we know what that is. That's the government. That's the federal government funding these types of organizations to undermine families and pit children and their parents against one another. So federal grants are involved.
I mean, they billed the school system $12,000 for a 6-hour training.
Right.
Somebody's
Exactly.
making a nice hourly wage.
Well, that's true. So, but I'm sure the organization is fully funded and supported by the federal government, or they wouldn't have mentioned grants. And, you know, that's our mission at United States Parents Involved in Education, is to close the Department of Ed and end all federal education mandates, because we know that a lot of this is being driven from the federal government. There's an Office of Civil Rights in the Department of Education, and they're all into this stuff. And they are supplying grants to help organizations like this to harm children. And so the other thing I think that's interesting about what you read is they claim to be helping them with their gender dysphoria. But the truth of the matter is they are causing gender
Right.
dysphoria. So gender dysphoria is a mental illness, and a mental illness is defined as when you believe something is true that is not true. So obviously it's a mental illness, and these children wouldn't even be thinking these things had it not been forced on them, and if they had not been groomed through the school district to think that this is a possibility to start with.
I mean, can we say children are highly susceptible to influence from outside sources, especially from adults? I mean, the children's lives revolve around looking up to adults and finding adults that they admire and can emulate. And so when you march these gender dysphoric individuals, adults, into the classroom, of course, children are going to go, well, look at that person, and they're getting all the accolades, and the teacher is standing there applauding, and, XYZ, they're absolutely transing the children on purpose.
Yes, it is an intentional agenda. They know what they're doing. And another thing that was in that article from the Daily Wire, it said that it was more important. This is what the organization said. It's more important now than ever because of all the pushback that's happening from parents and people like you and I. So now it's more important than ever to be in there and train people so that children can consider this gender dysphoria. It's really sad. It's a sad state of affairs in our country. And the Europeans were way ahead of us on this, Sam. They were sort of pioneers in this, and they've been advocating for this for decades. And recently, they have banned it.
They
in several
sorry.
European countries, they have banned it.
Right, but explain what you meant. They were ahead of us, meaning they were trailblazers in the transgender ideology. They embraced it, right?
They embraced it. They
And now
absolutely did.
right, and now they're issuing bans, and they're saying, whoa, we made a huge mistake.
Exactly.
But not us, not the US. We're just going full steam ahead, and we're like looking at them going, no, you guys have it wrong. I think that has it ever occurred to you that it's a little bit of a race? In other words,
I hadn't thought of it like that.
let me explain. Yeah, because there are only so many children right now. If you can trans enough of them, they may have enough of they won't get a majority, but they will have enough of and by the way, every child who undergoes surgery, every person that you can convince to opt in for surgery is at least a $250,000 ticket. That's a good sale. Like if these people would be getting paid commission, which by the way, there are people out there who are getting paid to do this stuff, and they will continue to get paid. This is the problem that we're discovering now in our healthcare system, is that we've incentivized people who have no scruples. What do you say to that?
Well, I think you're right. And I think that's why, there's such a problem with the government schools today and thinking that we can fix them somehow. So I think President Trump especially needs to be careful in his agenda, because his education agenda, while there's several things I agree with, I don't believe it's the role of the federal government to try to force people into teaching one way or the other. So the idea is, if you have people that hate math, they're going to have a hard time teaching math. If you have people that hate this country, they're going to have a hard time teaching patriotism.
This is what I've been saying, Sheri. I've been saying you can mandate that they teach the Constitution, but if they hate the Constitution, you're not going to get a good result. You're not going to get the results you're expecting. Exactly. Everybody goes, well, the Constitution, every conservative says, well, the Constitution's just a fantastic document. Not if you don't teach it that way. Right. You could poke holes all the way through it if you teach it the wrong way. If you tell people that the men who wrote it were bigoted racists who, beat people and believe whatever lies they can make up about the person who wrote it, you're never going to read that document and understand the brilliance of it. And it goes so much deeper than that anyway. So you will not convince somebody who has been groomed. And I want to quickly go back to what you were talking about in the teaching colleges before this whole movement really took root in the grade schools. But to finish what I was saying, you're not going to convince somebody who's gone through the Marxist teaching colleges and hates America. You will not convince them to effectively teach students to love America. It's just not going to happen. So you had mentioned that you saw this coming a long time ago, that the transgender ideology was already in the teaching colleges. Talk about that for a minute.
Okay, so the colleges of education are one of the most liberal disciplines in most colleges and universities. I live in South Carolina. We're a very red state. And yet our major university here, University of South Carolina, has in their College of Education, they have an entire program for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And they're unashamed of it. They advertise training for their incoming teachers to learn to teach critical race theory. And all of the critical theories are taught that way, the way you were describing. So you can say, I'm teaching the Constitution, but poke all the holes in it, and you're actually teaching it. So even another example that Dr. Duke Pista gave us in the movie you mentioned, Truth and Lies in American Education, he talks about how in the colleges they will do a critical reading, say, of the Bible, and so they'll point out how Jesus only hung out with men and all of these things. So they suggest perhaps he was homosexual. So that's
right. Right.
But that's exactly what's happening. They can claim they're teaching the Bible as literature and still have it support their agenda. And that's the critical theory aspect of it. So that's happening in our state here in South Carolina. It's happening in the colleges and universities across our country. Of course, there's a few exceptions. There's Hillsdale and Liberty University and some other good colleges. But by and large, and most of them state-sponsored, universities and colleges all have these programs. And you can imagine if ours is like that in South Carolina, imagine what it's like in Washington State or California or one of those states. And they're pumping all of this into these young teachers. Now imagine these young teachers have been somewhat indoctrinated already through K-12, and then they put them in this College of Education, right, and they fully indoctrinate them before
right,
they even hit the classroom. So they believe in what they're teaching. They believe they're helping children. I mean, these are probably some well-intentioned people that they themselves have been indoctrinated, and that's what we're up against.
And that's what we're up against. So we're going to take a quick break, and I'm going to take you behind the paywall on Locals. So if you want to hear the rest of this, please head over to samsorbo.locals.com. And I'm going to talk to Sheri about solutions, actions that parents can take and others to try to resolve some of these issues that we see in our schools today. And like I said, I think it's a race. I think we need to solve these issues before the problem becomes so big. This is like a cancer. And so the longer we let it fester and grow, the more difficult it will be to excise and eliminate. Stay with me through the break, and we'll be back in a minute. Hi there. So for years, I've been harping on the problems in our schools and the fact that most of our government schools, our factory schools, have been overrun by this progressive ideology that is really at war with our traditional American values, our Judeo-Christian values. And parents have finally started waking up more and more, which pleases me to no end. But they're worried about what to do. They are not sure which way to turn, and that's why it gives me great pleasure to announce my continuing partnership with the Herzog Foundation. So the Herzog Foundation is a trusted source for K through 12 Christian education. They have a really remarkable suite of resources for parents and for families. They have an online publication known as The Lion and a network of podcasts, including mine. So they can offer a wide range of advice and information for Christian parents to make the best decisions regarding the education of their children and the values that they instill in their children. And so if you want to find out any more, about this remarkable organization, just go to herzogfoundation.com. That's herzogfoundation.com. Thanks so much. Protect your family from harmful and explicit content online with Canopy, the only solution that filters and monitors in real time. With Canopy, you can rest easy knowing your children are browsing safely and securely. Visit canopy.us and use code SAM20 to get 20% lifetime discount on any subscription. Keep your loved ones safe online with Canopy today. Thanks for listening and watching to the Sam Sorbo Show. If you want to hear the rest of the episode, head on over to samsorbo.locals.com and subscribe to hear the rest of the episode.
Views and opinions expressed in the Sam Sorbo Show are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views and positions of the Herzog Foundation.